Hello, everyone. I'm Juan Fernandez, along with Sandra Mitchell. L.A. Mayor Eric Garcetti getting ready to speak about the protests going on and around the city by people angry with the presidential election results.
Yeah, it looks like he's just about ready to start.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you all so much for being here. We have had an historic week in the United States of America. We've had a week in which our fundamental values have been tested, a divisive election which has reminded Americans, or tried to remind Americans, of the things that separate us. But we've also seen some visions that remind us of who we are. At our ballot box, on our streets, discussions in our homes and at our schools, difficult discussions, painful ones. A lot of people, especially in this town, whose hearts sank with the results of national elections. With Secretary Clinton, while she won a majority or a plurality of the votes in the Electoral College, lost the campaign to become President of the United States, and one in which Donald Trump was elected as the President-elect. I'm here today to remind us all that democracy is about more than just an election. It's about what we do in between elections. It's about what we do not just in Washington, D.C., but what we do right here in Los Angeles, in the neighborhoods where we live and where we work, the places that we pray, the places that we play. And for me, it was important to come forward as mayor of the city to reassure this city about how strong we are and this country is today. Democracy is about voting, yes, but it's also about volunteering. It's about speaking up and speaking out. It's not about going into a corner and crying and disappearing. It's about getting out and getting up every single day. Last night, thousands of Angelenos came together to peacefully protest on the streets of Los Angeles and to publicly let their feelings be known. I'm very proud of this city. I think in parental terms, we're modeling good behavior. We're showing what a democracy is about. That is our responsibility to speak out, to stand for values that unite us, values that undergird our democracy and our nation. And I especially am proud of the young people who have gone out onto the streets, maybe for the first time, to make sure that their perspectives are heard, that their feelings can be watched by people not just here in Los Angeles, but together with others around the nation. Last night we saw the people on their streets. Angelenos, many of them too young to vote, expressed their frustration and fear, but most importantly, they expressed almost the limitless love and solidarity in this city. That love is what guides us, that unity is what defines us, and that each of us have a role to play in the coming days. To reach out, maybe to those who voted in a different direction, to those who might want to check out, and to say that the work that we do is too urgent to be defined by any one moment or by any one person, but that it is each of our responsibilities to engage in and to continue to sustain towards. I think that's something that we can embrace, that we can cultivate, and that we can channel into the change that all of us want to see in our country. These demonstrations have been overwhelmingly lawful, and I'm grateful to the work of Chief Charlie Beck, our officers, for working with protesters and with people, making sure that they are safe and that we preserve one of their most fundamental rights, the First Amendment to our United States Constitution. That said, I just want to say as well, it's never a good idea to go onto a freeway. We had that advice from our parents, and it's not safe for you, it's not safe for drivers, people who are getting to and from work and to their families. Any folks who vandalize walls, news vans, they compromise their own safety and the safety of those drivers. But we know that that is a very, very small group of people. And I don't want the story to be overwhelmed that somehow it is about a very small group when we have thousands of people who are out there so beautifully expressing their rights as Americans and their feelings as human beings. We want to make sure that destroying property or other things doesn't get in the way of the important messages that people have to share with their fellow Americans as well. Democracy doesn't stop just because we may be dissatisfied with the outcome of an election. Trust me. I run for office and I've campaigned for many things. Sometimes we win and sometimes we lose. But democracy is a daily election, one in which we either elect to participate or not, one in which we decide to fight for the things that we believe in. And here in Los Angeles, I think we stand as testament to a counter-narrative to that we see around the country. Instead of division, this is a place that has unity. Instead of talking about what we want to do, we're already doing it. And voters stepped up as well on Tuesday here locally in what was such a bright spot in an otherwise tumultuous night to be able to say that we believe in fundamental things, that nobody should sleep on our streets, and so voters overwhelmingly, the 75+% vote, voted for Measure HHH to house at least 10,000 homeless people on our streets. They voted yes to move this city forward with Measure M, a mandate of 70+% to be able to make sure that we can spend more time with our families, with our friends, and create jobs that we so badly need. They said yes to higher education with Prop CC. They said yes to open space and parks with Measure A. These are the things that define our lives. And to those who may be despondent out there, I say, get up and join us. Yes, continue to express your feelings, whether it's online or on the streets. Continue to engage and to volunteer. And if you want to do something, we have ways to do things today. Host a house party and make sure we put together a care kit through our Welcome Home initiative for those who are homeless. Get out there with your church or your synagogue or your mosque and engage. But one thing I also want to say is there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of children who have been crying. There's a lot of people who are foreign-born who don't know what their future holds. And I want to say what Los Angeles is, who we are, and what we are about. We are a city that has never defined you by the zip code you grow up in, the country from which you or your parents immigrate from. We don't care how you worship God or where you worship God or whom you love. We care only what you want to do in this city and the dreams that you have to fulfill those. And we are going to fight hard to preserve those every single day. It may feel like the world has changed, but it hasn't. The sun rised, there's a peaceful transition of government, and we're going to be forceful advocates to keep all levels of our government accountable to us, where the power really is. 99% of what affects our lives doesn't come out of the White House. It comes out of our own homes. It comes out of our own communities and neighborhoods. So who's in the firehouse may be more important than who's in the White House. Who is down the street from us may be more important than somebody who is across a continent. And we will engage with other cities and mayors to make sure, whether it's the progress that we've made in this city on immigration, whether it's the progress that we have made on infrastructure, that we challenge and ask for our leaders to join us, that President-elect Trump be a part of that. And I welcome the ability to work with him on anything, as he has said, that can lift up the inequality in this country, that can invest in the infrastructure in this country, and that can bring us together, as he said, on election night. But we will also speak up and speak out for who we are, a town in which 63% of us are either foreign-born or the children of foreign-born, a place where I, as the 42nd mayor, the grandson of immigrants who came here from across oceans and rivers, who made the hard way to get here so that they could provide something better for their family, and now 2 generations later, stand before you as leader of this city. But I'm not the only leader in this city. Those young people who are out there are leaders. Our school board president who's here is leaders. This clergy council that is behind me are leaders. And every single person listening to this and watching to this, you are leaders and have an opportunity to lead. So don't despair, get to work. Don't check out, begin to organize. And yes, let's continue to be a strong clarion voice from Los Angeles, but let's also celebrate what we have right here in our backyard, a vision of this country and a vision of this city that is going to continue to have a more inclusive, unified, just world for all of us.
Mayor Eric Garcetti speaking from downtown LA right now at City Hall, saying that he supports those who are protesting the results of the election on Tuesday, but saying the protests last night, maybe not a good idea to shut down the 101 freeway, but also saying that he loves this city.
We're going to have much more on this coming up on KCAL 9 News at 4 o'clock. And for the very latest, you can always go to our website, kcal9.com. For Sandra Mitchell, I'm Juan Fernandez. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.